Dramatic Poesy is the most important treatise by Dryden as far as criticism is concerned. When we're talking about Dryden, I'm sure you have actually read at least a summary of the essay on dramatic poesy. Dryden is called as the father of English criticism by Samuel Johnson. Now this again you can add in your sobriquets. Now talking about essay on dramatic poesy, which is his contribution, Dryden himself was influenced by French writers, more specifically Cornet. It has also been identified by other critics who mentioned that he is largely influenced by the French. And Dr. Johnson, while talking about Dryden, he says Dryden may be properly considered as the father of English criticism, as the writer who first taught us to determine upon the principles the merits of a composition. I will just write it down here. Yes, so this is the quote by Samuel Johnson. Yes, so if you look at Dryden is actually one of those initial critics who took problems existing in literature or problems connected with literature deeply. He analyzed each of these problems seriously and deeply, and he is one of those initial people who actually believed that there are a lot of problems, and he was one person who took criticism very seriously. His criticism is all scattered because he has written about literary problems like the function of poetry, what is the function of poetry, what is the nature of poetry, what is dramatic art, epic, satire, translation, rhyme, the use of blank verse. So his criticism, it actually encompasses a wide range of literary problems or problems that probably exist in literature, because he talks about vacation forms that is used in art, more specifically literature, the function of poetry and all of this. Even before him you had critics like Sidney and all of them. But he is considered to be one of those initial people who took critical perspectives as well, because he is not entirely for the ancients and not entirely for the modern. He partly picks up important qualities or aspects of ancients, and of course he also looks at modern pleasures and modern principles as well. And as far as his whole work or his contribution to the field of criticism is concerned, he has given brilliant appreciations of Chaucer, of the works of Chaucer, because he says that Chaucer found English bricks and he left it on marble. So he gives wonderful or brilliant appreciations of Chaucer, Shakespeare, Beaumont and Fletcher, and of course Ben Jonson. And in fact, as far as Ben Jonson is concerned, he examined one of his plays thoroughly, which is The Silent Woman, or Epicene. It is also called as Epicene. So he analyzed this particular play, he examined it thoroughly. Because of all of these reasons, you can call him the father of literary criticism. And the most imitation of classical rules that's happening in case of Dryden, because it's thoughtful. He has a clear idea of what satire is. He has different views on satire. He has his own views on epic poetry, so on and so forth. Now this particular work, Essay on Dramatic Poesy, which is published in the year 1668, is again another important treatise on the art of writing poetry. Yes, now we'll only look at Essay on Dramatic Poesy, which is an elaborate and the most attractive work written by Dryden all throughout his life. So it was written 3 years before it was published. So it was actually written in 1665 is the period when it was written. Now this whole work, the Essay on Dramatic Poesy, is in the form of a debate. It is a literary debate that took place among these 4 people. All these 4 people are in fact representations, because it is a conversation among 4 friends. So the first is Eugenius. Eugenius is representing Lord Buckhurst. Crites, he represents Dryden's brother-in-law, Sir Robert Howard. Lycidas, representing Sir Charles, and of course Neander, representing Dryden. Drifting in a barge down river Thames. So that's actually the time when he is writing this particular work. They're all drifting down river Thames, and they're waiting to hear the news of the naval battle which happened in 1665. And in the introductory note which he writes to the readers, he says that he is writing this particular work in order to vindicate the honor of our English writers from the censure of those who unjustly prefer the French before them. So the main purpose is to vindicate. This is the purpose of the essay on dramatic poetry, to vindicate the honor. So this whole thing is in the form of a dialogue that takes place between two people. Again, he uses the dialogic method of instruction. The first debate was between Christ and Eugenius. He says that the moderns follow classical rules. He says that the moderns follow these classical rules. Eugenius says that the ancients have no poetic justice. So if you look at them, Christ is talking in favor of classical drama, where he says that even the modern poets are now writing in the rule based on the rules laid down by these ancients. And Eugenius is talking in favor of modern drama because he says that the ancients lack poetic justice. There's no poetic justice that's being employed by these ancients. And Christ says that ancients were extremely successful in depicting what happens in life. So they were able to express things that happen in real life as it is. And he here mentions that Ben Jonson was one really greatest man of the previous age, because he tried to imitate these ancients as faithfully as possible, because he always tried to imitate the ancients, and also he tried to follow the rules laid down by the ancients. Now talking about Eugenius listens to all those arguments made by Christ, and then he replies patiently in favor of the moderns, where he says that the moderns have been profited by the rules laid down by the ancients. They have been benefited. But the most important thing, the first thing which is a superior construction of the moderns, is the inclusion or the introduction of the 5-act plays. 5-act plays is done only by the moderns. So yeah, that's one thing that he says that these moderns have successfully done, which is the introduction of the 5-act plays. And he also tries and finds out faults with the ancient plays. For example, he picks up plays that are based on the tales of Thebes and Troy. And over and over again, there have been ancient plays based on only these tales from Thebes. Thebes, the place where Oedipus, his tale is largely set in Thebes. And Troy, of course, we all know of Troy and the setting of Troy, which in fact forms the bedrock for most of these ancient works. So that is again Eugenius, where Eugenius also talks about the Aristotelian unity of action, where he says that this unity of action is not something that was mentioned by Aristotle, but it is of a French origin. And he talks about how there is no poetic justice, and again they themselves could not follow what they preached because there was no moral teaching as far as these ancients are concerned. Now moving on, we go to the second debate. So the second debate was between Lycidas and Neander, which is Dryden. So Lycidas talks for French drama. Lycidas talks in favor of French drama, and Neander talks in favor of Elizabethan drama. This is how the second debate is set. Now talking about Lycidas, who talks about French drama, he says that they strictly followed poetic justice. So that's the first thing that he is putting in place. They strictly followed poetic justice. He is largely in favor of the French dramatists, more specifically Corneille. And he says that the French dramatists never mix these two forms, tragedy and comedy. They never mix both these forms. They are always separate as far as French drama is concerned. And to add on, he talks about how these unities, they have scrupulously followed all these unities of time, place and action. There are no underplots, there are no subplots, they do not write tragic comedy. Tragic comedy, he says, which is the most stupid invention or the most absurd thing that was invented by English dramatists. That is not the case with French drama, because French drama does not have underplots or subplots, and they do not mingle tragic and comic actions. And he talks about how a French play is entirely grown. It does not just abruptly end, or it does not abruptly convert, but it is, it does not end with a simple conversation, he says. A French drama, unlike all English plays, it does not end with conversation, or it does not end with a sudden change in the will of a person, but in fact all action that takes place in French drama is in fact planned, something that happens is always justified as far as French plays are concerned. Now, talking about English drama, you have Neander, who talks in favor of Elizabethan drama. So, in order to vindicate English drama, Neander, he uses decorum, because decorum is an important thing. The French dramatists, they maintain decorum, and but on the other hand, if you look at Elizabethan drama or English drama, it is always a lively imitation of life, and Elizabethan drama imitates life, while French drama has no emotions and no soul. It has no emotions, no soul, and Neander speaks in favor of Ben Jonson and Shakespeare, many such great writers. He appreciates Shakespeare, in fact, and this is where he says that Shakespeare was a man who, of all modern and perhaps ancient poets, had the largest and the most comprehensive soul. He believes that the Elizabethans are superior to the French also because they employed a wide range of themes. They used a lot of emotions, deviations, and wit. And therefore, he believes that Elizabethan drama is far superior compared to French drama. And third debate is again between Christ and Neander, which is again about versification form. Which verse form is suitable for poetry is actually the thing here.